Hello, this is Chris with Belcher Consulting. And recently I've had a few people ask me about using VLOOKUPs and index matches, beginner users, and telling me they've had trouble making one or the other work and which one do I, asking me which one do I like more than the other, or which one do I use more than the other. So I wanted to make a kind of a beginner video today, or video for beginning Excel users to kind of go over each of those and why you might use one or the other, and actually how to write these functions, and tell you why one might have limitations over the other. So we're going to use some sample data here. I have a list of names, student names, and some subjects in school and corresponding grades for each of those students. So I also have another table over here that's going to translate these number grades into a letter grade, and we'll use VLOOKUPs and index matches to find those. So it's going to assume, pretend this is a large group of data that we were trying to find a particular student's name in, but we're going to keep it simple for now. So we're going to have a student name here, and we're going to find the subject that they get their grade in. So basic way is a VLOOKUP. Write that VLOOKUP. I'm going to put the parentheses out there. And the first argument that's brought up for VLOOKUP is the lookup value. What are we going to look up? Well, we're looking up the name Tom. And the second argument is, what's the table? What's the big group of information that we're going to look from? So right now, we're highlighting everything. In order for VLOOKUP to work properly, your data has to be written so the reference column, the column that the names are being referenced from, is in the far left, or any information. So anytime you use a VLOOKUP, the reference data has to be the very, very first column of your data table. So keep that in mind, because that's going to come back in a second. But so we're just going to highlight this whole table right here. That's the table we're using with our reference data on the very far left. And then the third argument of this function is it's asking us which row we want to pull this information from. So we're going to find the name in this particular row, and then which column are we going to pull it out of. So in this particular case, math. So you can see we counted our columns: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Math is the second one, and that's number 2. Where this function is going to get you in trouble is this last argument right here, and that's going to be based off how your data looks, how your data is set up and arranged. This is a true or false argument, and the argument is going to be based off whether or not you need to find an exact match. I need to find this name exactly in here, or something in a range of data like this, like these grades that are the closest to, or fit within a different range. In this case, true. If I put true in here, it's going to find the closest match. False means I need to find an exact match. I need to find Tom exactly in this group of data here, not whatever would be closest. Now that doesn't really apply here. That would more apply if I was looking at grades. If if the exact number is not in here, it's going to have to find what's closest. In this case, we're using a false. And as you can see, Tom's grade in math is 57. If we change it to Josh. Josh's grade in math was a 38, and Jenny's was a 55. So, okay. Now we're going to use VLOOKUP to find the letter grade. You can see what the difference here is. So the same thing, we're going to look up values. Now we're going to look up this grade, which is 55. Let's kind of cut this off, but 55. And our table array, it's going to be these two. Again, the reference has to be in the far left-hand column, but keep in mind it's in a sorted order. So the third argument is what row do we want there, what column do we want to have this pull out of again? Well, there's 1, 2. We want to pull back the information from this one, so we're going to put 2. And this is where this is going to get you in trouble if you don't put in the right argument. This grade 55 isn't an exact matchup here. We have to find it somewhere in a range of information, and that's where I'm going to put my true, as opposed to my other argument where I put it false. And as you can see right here, 55 doesn't quite make it to a D, so it's an F. And where you're going to get screwed up is when you have your data in the wrong order, or you've given that the wrong number. And for a VLOOKUP, and you're looking through numbers, they all have to be from smallest to largest. So if I switch this, I'm going to get a goofy grade on there. So if you have your information pulling from a table and you're constantly sorting your table, it's going to screw you up. And there are ways around it. We can talk about that later. But now I'll write the index match function. And the index match function is actually two functions. It's a match function inside of an index function. So we're going to write the match function. And I pull up there, it brings up my argument box. And the same thing, basically. It's going to be asking us to look up value. We want to look up Jenny. And we want to look up where that particular name, what position it is inside of an array. And the array is, in this case, it's just going to be one column, or it could be one row, but in this case, one column of information. And here's where we're going to get in trouble with this function. Much like the VLOOKUP, this has an argument box that's asking us how is our data set up. Is our data set up to where it needs to be an exact match because it's words, or is it a range of numbers that could either be smallest to largest or largest to smallest? In this particular case, just like I would answer true or false in a VLOOKUP function, this argument has three possible numbers: 1, 0, and -1. 1 would be, it assumes that the table is smallest to largest. -1 assumes it's from largest to smallest, or 0 means I need an exact lookup. So in this case, position Jenny or position Josh is actually in the fourth position down. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. There's Josh's name. He's in the fourth position. So now we'll finish that argument off. This function off by putting the index in there. I type in index. I go up to my argument box. There are two types of index functions. We're just going to be working with the first one for today, and I'll explain the differences in another video, but we're just working with the first one. Now, this argument has 3 arguments in it. And when I do it the way I did it, it actually automatically puts the match function inside the wrong argument. I actually don't want it there. We're going to cut it and put it here, and I'll show you why in a second. But it's because the array, it's asking for the array first. So now I'm looking to return the array with the answer in it. So we're looking for math. We're going to highlight that array, and the previous match argument tells us which position to pull that number from. We don't have to worry about the last argument. This won't screw us up. So we just need those ones. As you can see, 38. So whether I use a VLOOKUP or whether I use an index match, you can see that it's going to pull up the proper grade in that particular column. And again, we'll use the match function to find the letter grade. We're going to look at value number 38 in this particular array. And again, here's where we're going to get in trouble if we're not careful. I have to tell this argument which way my data is laid out. In this case, it's laid out from largest to smallest, or smallest to largest, so I can put a number 1. If I had it from smallest to largest, I'd have to change a -1. So as you can see, same thing. This person got a phone's going crazy. This person got a 33 in that particular class. That's obviously way below 60, so it's in position 1. We'll finish this function off. We'll type an index function, use the first one again. And again, like the way I type it, it puts it in the wrong position. So we're going to cut, put it here in that argument. And now the array that we want the answer from is this, and it's going to give us the first one. And in that particular case is F. So we can scroll through here and change all these names back to Jenny, back to Tom. This will give us Tom's grade, 50, 57, and the corresponding grade. So let's find someone who did good in that class. So Brad, you see Brad got a B. He didn't get quite to 90, so he's in the B letter grade. Now, with both of these particular functions, they're going to have their limitations. So like I said, VLOOKUP means whenever you're looking at a table, the table that you're referencing from has to be the very first. That's not necessarily the case with index match. You could be matching something out here and referencing it from wherever you want to. So that if you have, a looking across pages or multiple pages in a workbook, that particular case, if you just need to return it from one row, that's where index and match becomes a little more handy. If you're working with data tables like I have here and multiple data tables, and you're a little more familiar with naming ranges and stuff like that, VLOOKUP is going to be a little better for you because you can tell in one of the arguments to hop between data tables. So if I had another group of this over here, or copy down here with a whole set of names, I could hop down. I could tell that argument to hop between the two tables. But you can see where I've limited myself is I haven't told this argument to change based on the course, and that's because of the static way I have the formula written. So in order to make this even cooler, I actually use a combination of index match, and I actually use a embedded match function inside the VLOOKUP function, and I'll show you how that works. So the first argument is match again. Use match, and what I want to do, I want to actually look up, in this particular case, the subject, and I want to look up the subject in this array. And again, like I said, the arrays can be up and down, they can be vertically or horizontally, and in this particular case, I'm going to use this whole header row right here, and it's going to ask me again. You're going to get in trouble if you're not paying attention here. Do I want an exact match, or is it numbers and it's looking to the closest value? Well, 0 here is an exact match. And as you can see, it brings back 4, telling me it's in the 4th position. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's chemistry. All right. Now we can finish this off. Put our lookup function, and again, it automatically puts it in the first argument, but that's not the case. That gave us the row number. So if you remember, that's actually the 3rd argument for this function. And we're going to go back and do the VLOOKUP like normal. We're going to look up Brad in this table array, and again, because we're using a VLOOKUP, the reference column has to be right here. So that might be a limitation for you depending on how your data is set up. The 3rd argument is the row, and now that's, instead of being static, that's dynamic. That'll change depending on how we change our subject. And in our last argument here, again, are we looking for an exact match or closest match? We're looking for an exact match, so that's false. And as you can see, Brad in chemistry got a 45. And if we change the subject, Brad in biology got a 95, and that holds up. Same thing, we can change the numbers back and forth. So that's the advantages of using both together. But again, depending on your data, depending on your skill level, depending on if you're good at naming ranges and naming arrays, and that kind of thing, that will really depend on whether you want to use a VLOOKUP or index match. And I use both, again, depending on my data setup. If I have data where I don't necessarily have the reference in the far left side, I have to use an index match. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. You can drop me a line if you need to, ask me some questions. I'll be making some more follow-up videos where I'll just go into each of these functions alone and showing you how you can make them a little more dynamic, again, by naming ranges and all that kind of stuff. So all right, thanks for watching.